morning. Our reading today is the lectionary passage from last week, a story of temptation and transformation that stands as a gateway each year to welcome us into this season of Lent. We are journeying within. It's a story we need, for its motif of overcoming challenges is something we all need to experience in our lives. So hear the story from Matthew chapter 4, verses 1 through 11. Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tested by the devil. He fasted 40 days and 40 nights, and afterwards he was famished. The tempter came to him and said, "If you are the Son of God, command these stones to become loaves of bread." But he answered, "It is written that one does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God." Then the devil took him to the holy city and placed him on the pinnacle of the temple, saying to him, "If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down, for it is written, he will command his angels concerning you. And on their hands they will bear you up, and so that you will not dash your foot against a stone." Jesus said to him, "Again, it is written, do not put the Lord your God to test." Again, the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory. And he said to him, "All these I will give to you if you fall down and worship me." Then Jesus said to him, "Away with you, Satan! For it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve only him." Then the devil left him, and suddenly angels came and waited on him.
Great reading, Peter. Thank you. Thank you. Came across this yesterday. It kind of fit our text for the day, so I thought it would share it here. It sure wasn't easy being the mother of Jesus. Dear mom, gone into the wilderness for 40 days to be tempted by Satan. Don't worry. Signed, Jay. So I'm like, well, there's got to be some others. I was reminded what Howard Thurman said. What a deadly religion it is if it has no humor. The great Howard Thurman. So I found this one at Lent because extroverts can't have all of the holiday. You have them all, you extroverts. This next one has nothing to do with Lent, but I just cracked up over. Oh, wait, this one. For Lent, I was going to give up all my bad habits, but then I remembered no one likes a quitter. Oh, one likes a quitter. This one has nothing to do with it, but I just cracked up over. The printer's down. I'm still laughing at that one. It's so stupid, yet it's so funny. I think is that the last one I had? It is the last one I had. All right. It's a little fun. We need to laugh, right? Because a religion without laughter truly is a horrible thing. I want to add a second scripture text today to our text from Luke that Peter read for us. One I encountered decades ago, and I've never quite been able to forget. I return to it again and again as sort of a mantra for my life. I think I've shared it before in different contexts. But this holy reading comes from the Gospel of Northern Exposure. Yeah? Written by St. Bernard of the Chris in the Morning Show as he was reflecting on a journey he took to his distant homeland of Africa. He said these words about the nature of the journey. He said, "It's the coming back, the return which gives meaning to the going forth. We really don't know where we've been until we've come back to where we were. Only where we were may not be as it was because of who we've become, which is, after all, why we left." End quote. I want to add these words by Bernard today because they really sum up perfectly the season of transformation that we continue our our journey into the season of Lent, a liturgical season that will, if we will allow it, be a journey that will have profound implications on the whole of not only our spiritual lives, but our lives overall, as they're really intimately connected. We often forget that. This is a good season to remind ourselves of that. This journey, if we're willing to accept it, will usher us deep into ourselves and deep into the world around us, and ultimately open our eyes to the realm of God that is really blooming and thriving around us, if we just take the time to want to see it. And so I invite you on this second week of Lent. There's still time. We still have 5 weeks, right? Yeah, we still have 5 weeks to accept the invitation this year to cultivate a practice of the Spirit over these coming weeks through some times of stillness or observation or centering or prayer or tuning out the distractions while at the same time tuning into the interactions of the rhythms of God in your life. You all have them. And that is what Lent is about. Forget all that guilt crap. Who was raised with all that guilt crap? You Catholics in the house? Where are you Catholic? Where are my Catholics? Where are my depraved Lutherans? They out there too? I was a depraved Lutheran. Yeah, I'm giving up stuff. That's what I'm doing. So we get all that guilt stuff, and because really, just tuning in, that's what Lent is about, and it can be an amazing journey if you'll just enter it with some intention. And like Bernard from Northern Exposure, when you return, things might be quite different because of who you've become on this journey. So speaking of amazing experiences and journeys, our scripture text today is one truly amazing experience as Jesus is led into the wilderness for a time of fasting and prayer and temptation and ultimately transformation as he refuses to give into the devil and the devil's alluring vices. I love this story. There's so much going on here and so much to get into. Unfortunately, we only have a little time, so I'm going to keep this to an hour. But I got to talk about the devil, right? Come on. And a little side note, I was just at a doctor's appointment on Monday of this past week, and one of the nurses found out what I do. Oh, God, always a dilemma. And she started, this is what happens, and she started talking about being tired. And she looked really tired. She was down because I'd seen her the week before. And because she told me she was at this all-night prayer vigil the night before, all night prayer vigil to ward off the devil from our lives. That's what she was doing the night before. She then, turning to me and looking obviously like she hadn't slept in days, she turned my way. I'm on the table. And I saw like the reds of her eyes, and she's coming at me with these sharp instruments. And I'm thinking, yep, this is exactly what I'm in an Uber, just crazy lit office. It's so bright in there, you could do surgery. It's so bright. And I got this tired devil believer with sharp instruments coming at me. Thought, yep, I'm in hell. It's happened. I'm there. Needless to say, I survived, but unfortunately I have to go back tomorrow. My only hope is that she's not watching this sermon. I don't know. An exorcist. Oh. In all seriousness, although that was serious, and it's serious tomorrow too. Just one quick note about the devil. Here, the devil is not, in the Judaism of Jesus' time, a horned monster. Get out of your heads, with a tail that waves around a fiery pitchfork. That image from Jesus' time was still 1,200 years and some really crazy, inventive, on-hallucinogen artists away. Dante and Hieronymus Bosch, to name a few. Rather, the devil, as the gospel writers would have understood the term, would have been in the form, this is what I wanted to tell my nurse, I will tomorrow, would have been more in the form of diabolos in Greek, which means accuser or tempter, as we heard, or adversary, Or in the Hebrew scriptures, we hear, such as in the book of Job, of a figure called Satan. Satan, that's where we get Satan from. It's Satan, or actually known as Hasatan, which means hinderer. Oh, catching that? Satan, S-A-T-A-N, Hasatan, Satan, Satan. The church lady? Who remembers the church lady? You remember the church lady? Well, aren't you special? So Hasatan means hinderer, not a pitchfork-wielding, tailed creature. Hasatan was really just an angel of God who worked for the big guy and carried out tasks of tempting and obstructing people for a variety of reasons. Again, think of the book of Job. I know you're familiar with it, where Job and Hasatan make a Las Vegas-style wager to get the poor old Job to curse God. So think of, it's in the Bible, don't think I'm making it up, it's there. Or think of today's story, when Hasatan tempts Jesus. We heard the word tempter or the devil, same thing. It's all quite clear. So for the sake of this text, let's dispense of the pitchfork fire devil that awaits bad souls in hell, and let's not talk about them in modern day medical offices, for God's sakes. That imagery is just not helpful here or intended in this text. Let's instead focus on the other important aspects of the story and aspects of our spiritual lives. And those themes are the journeys that life sends us on and the wildernesses that we find ourselves within, and ultimately the transformation of some kind that comes from those times and the change and emergence of a new way of being that can invariably result upon our return. Different way to enter that text. I mean, if you wander through the stories of the Hebrew Scriptures and the Newer Testament, as well as other religions and myths, you'll see this fascinating storyline that pops up over and over and over and over again. Joseph Campbell calls it the monolith of the hero and the journey, and it's everywhere. You see it everywhere. For instance, in the Hebrew Scriptures, you first hear about it with Noah, who journeys into the ark for 40 days and 40 nights as the storm rages, and emerges from the ark transformed, the bearer of new ways of living as God blesses him. We hear of the Israelites journeying out of Egypt and wandering for how many years? 40 years, for reaching the promised land as a new and transformed nation. We hear of Moses journeying up the mountain, spending 40 days and 40 nights there with God before coming down with the 15 commandments. He dropped a tablet. If you haven't seen Mel Brooks, Definitive History of Moses, he came down with, he said, I have 15, and then one of the tablets fell and broke, and he goes, 10! 10 commandments for all the world to see. Mel Brooks is coming out with a new history of the world, I heard, by the way. Oh yeah, I just heard that. It's going to be fascinating. Can't wait to see what he does with our modern times. We also hear of Elijah, who fasted for 40 days and 40 nights, his journey unfolding under a broom tree. Elijah emerged transformed as a prophet among the peoples, his own and others. Again, if I can only put my finger on the glaring similarity between all of those stories, but I digress. We hear of others, Ruth, who journeyed from her homeland and broke with cultural tradition to follow Naomi, and in the end became grandmother of King David. We hear of Daniel, who journeyed into the lion's den and came out transformed. We hear of Jonah, who journeyed into the belly of the whale and emerged as an unlikely hero. We hear of Jacob, who upon his own journey climbed a great ladder in one instance and wrestled with God in another. Jacob emerged as a new nation. David journeyed into the ridicule of the people around him as he went up against Goliath, and why don't you tell me this is coming off? And was transformed from a small boy into the mightiest of kings. That's just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, look to other religions, and what do you see? The theme, the journey, a time of trial or an ordeal and a transformation, and always an emergence as one with something to impart to the world around them in a new way. A man named Siddhartha Gautama, for instance, a prince from a wealthy and royal family, leaves his homeland, and he goes into the forest, and he sits under a Bodhi tree, and he is tempted to 3 times by the forces of lust, fear, and submission. In this case, he refuses to yield, he beats the demonic forces, and he emerges from the forest transformed, known forever after as the Buddha. Another man by the name of Muhammad in the 7th century was awakened by the angel Gabriel one night and journeyed into the realm of the heavens, coming face to face with Allah, and then returned transformed with the Quran for his people. And now, today, we hear of Jesus of Nazareth, who after leaving home and accepting the call to be baptized, journeys into the wilderness, and he undergoes his own time of temptation and trial. And then what does he do? He emerges transformed, and he does what all these previous heroes do as they spring forth from their own journeys. He begins to teach others that there is another way to live, free from the trappings, the injustice, and the violence of this world. These themes, wilderness of some kind, it could be an actual wilderness, a forest, could be an ark, could be a lion's den, could be a whale, or could be a shade tree, could be a difficult time. The metaphor is wide and many, yet in all cases, these things stand as metaphors for trials, for temptations, for difficult times that lead to a state of transformation for the one undergoing the ordeal, chosen or not. That's important. And in each of these times, someone, generally an ordinary person, just like you or I, enters the journey and emerges as a bearer of new being for others. The journey leads to transformation, and in the end, a hero or a heroine, which we all can be, emerges out the other side. That, my friends, is the power of this season. The Lenten season is a time of reflection and courage, of journeying and seeking transformation. It's the reason our Jesus story always stands as the threshold of Lent, inviting us inward to the season. His invitation to accept the challenge to walk the path of the hero or the heroine's adventure, a path that each of you has been ushered into in some way. It might be hard, but you got to look for it. It's there. And our journeys are all different. Each one of you, your journeys are all different. Just as each of the ones I recounted are different from our religious traditions and stories. But in each of them lies the common denominator of the wilderness in some form or another. Some of you have journeyed. Maybe you're journeying right now, right this moment, so to speak, into the belly of the whale. You feel like you're there, or maybe the lion's den of the ark of darkness. Maybe it's a health uncertainty or mental health struggles, or it's grief, or, good God, overwhelming political discourse and division. It could be many and varied, that wilderness. It could be anything. For others, the journey is maybe one of choice, like perhaps more akin to a mountaintop experience or time of seeking, finding, searching. You're literally going on a journey or a quest. You've chosen that, to find something, to seek for something. Now, most of us will encounter several varieties of these journeys in our lives as they unfold, in the good times and also in the bad times. But the fact is that wilderness in positive and negative manifestations will become a reality for us in our lives, whether we want it to or not. That's just a fact of life. But it's how we emerge. It's how we emerge following the times of wilderness that counts. It's in what forms transformation in our lives take following the journey that counts. And in each case, like Moses on the mountaintop, or Jonah in the whale, like Ruth in a foreign land, or like Elijah under the broom tree, or Buddha under a Bodhi tree, like Jesus in the wilderness of temptation, the journey, if we will let it, will change us at the core of our being if we can just really pay attention to its messages. In our lives, Joseph Campbell writes, I love this quote, "We have only to follow the thread of the hero path. And where we had thought to find an abomination, we shall find a God. Where we had thought to slay another, we will slay ourselves. Where we had thought to travel outwards, we shall come to the center of our own existence. Where we had thought to be alone, we shall be with all the world." End quote. That's the heart of the journey. I guess my question I hope to leave you with is where are you? Where are you in the wilderness motif that we have explored? Where are you? Are you heading into the wilderness now in some form, chosen or not, good or bad? As we speak, are you heading in right now? Are you already there, trying to find your way in the midst of it? Or are you emerging from a time of wilderness, perhaps from the darkness of the dense canopies and back into the light of a new and transformed day? Where are you today? Just take a moment and think about that. But here's the thing. As you ponder that, just know that no matter what path you find yourself on, no matter what kind of wilderness you find yourself in, we have to trust, keep the faith that it will be one in which you emerge transformed in some way. How you might not be able to say yet. That may come later, but you have to trust that. But through life and through death and everything in between, the one thing we know, as our ancient stories tell us, is that the journey will go on. The journey will go on. I guess that is the season of Lent, and especially the Easter and the new life that we await. Again, the return gives meaning to the going forth. We really don't know where we've been until we come back to where we were, only where we were may not be as it was because of who we've become. The journeys, the wildernesses, the trials and ordeals, these things have lessons to teach us, even the hardest of them. Especially, maybe the hardest of them, right? But it's how we return that will shape how we go on. And so it is my hope that your return, following Lent, these 40 days and 40 nights, my hope is that we'll find you more at peace, more in tune with your own journey, more in tune with the world around you, and definitely more immersed in the mystery of the God journey that you are already an intricate and amazing and unfolding part of. I wish you a blessed remainder of this Lenten season. Amen.